The Now You See Me franchise, it's kind of like a magic trick itself, right? Sometimes it's absolutely dazzling, and other times, well, it just fizzles out. The second movie, a lot of people felt it really missed the mark. So that left the third one with this huge challenge. Could it actually bring the magic back? Well, that's what we're going to break down here. Exactly how they pulled off their greatest trick yet.
So, yeah, that's really the big question, isn't it? How did they manage to bring that magic back? I mean, the second film went way bigger, way louder, but it lost something essential along the way. Now You See Me 3, it took a totally different path, and man, did it pay off. So let's get into it. We're going to unpack the key changes that totally turned this franchise around, looking at everything from the story itself to the actual illusions.
Okay, so to understand what went wrong, you first got to understand what made it so right in the first place. The first movie absolutely nailed it because it had this perfect balance of three things: illusions that made your jaw drop, heists that were so clever they made you feel smart just for watching, and of course, that big screen spectacle. That formula, that's the core promise to us, the audience. It's the gold standard. And this is where it all started to go sideways. Now You See Me 2 basically took that spectacle dial and cranked it up to 11. But in doing so, it just threw the whole formula out of whack. The smarts, it got all muddled. And the illusions, they started feeling less like clever sleight of hand and more like, I don't know, CGI-heavy action scenes. The end result was a movie that just felt kind of hollow, you know? It was the trick without the payoff, without the prestige.
So, yeah, it was basically a broken promise. The movie broke that fundamental contract it had with all of us watching, and that's exactly where we're going to start our deep dive. And this chart, it lays out the whole course correction perfectly. Just look at it. On the left, you've got everything wrong with the sequel. All that noise and chaos, the total confusion, and the over-the-top CGI spectacle. But on the right, that's what the third film brought back: impact and control, real clarity, and illusions that felt grounded. Honestly, this one comparison, it's pretty much the whole story of the comeback. All right, so let's dig into the first big fix: smarter sleight of hand in the storytelling. Because let's be real, a great magic trick isn't just about the flashy visuals. It's about the story that holds the whole thing together. I think this was the number one frustration for so many of us, right? The second movie's plot was just so convoluted. There were so many twists and double crosses that by the end, you weren't impressed, you were just lost. It made the classic mistake of confusing complexity with actual intelligence, and it just ended up pushing away the very people it was trying to amaze. The third film, on the other hand, it got it. It understood a fundamental rule of magic. You have to make the audience feel like they're in on the trick, even when they're not. It builds a story that you can actually follow, it lays all the groundwork, so when that final twist hits, it feels completely earned. And that is the huge difference between feeling confused and feeling truly amazed. And this is basically how they do it. It's the anatomy of a great, earned twist. And it's just like a classic magic trick. First, you've got step one, the setup. They plant all the little seeds right there in plain sight. Then comes step two, the misdirection. They get you to look over here while the real work is happening over there. And finally, step three, the reveal. All the dots connect, and you get that awesome aha moment. That is just great, satisfying storytelling. Okay, so the story got way smarter. Awesome. But what about the actual magic? Well, that brings us to the second massive fix: grounding the illusion. This was pretty much everyone's reaction to the tricks in Now You See Me 2. I mean, a character throws a playing card and it stops the rain? Come on. That just crosses a line. When a trick relies that heavily on CGI, it stops feeling like magic and just becomes another bonkers action sequence. You're not sitting there wondering, how'd they do that? You're just thinking, wow, the VFX team did a good job. But wait, how did they do that? This is the reaction you want. This is the magic sweet spot. Now You See Me 3 made its illusions feel tangible, practical, and genuinely clever. It pulls you right back into the mystery, making you an active participant trying to solve the puzzle. It sparks that curiosity instead of just disbelief, which is, that's the whole point of a magic trick, isn't it? And that's because the movie doesn't just show you tricks, it builds them. You get to see the process. The film actually takes the time to show you the setup, some of the mechanics, the incredible teamwork involved. We get to see the gears turning, so to speak. And by letting us in on parts of the process, the final reveal becomes way more impressive because it feels like something that could actually be pulled off with enough skill and planning. And really, all of this points to just a much more confident, focused direction. The second movie kind of felt like it was having an identity crisis, you know? It was trying to be this globe-trotting spy thriller and a magic movie all at once. The third film, it knows exactly what it is, a great magic heist movie. And it just leans into that, delivering a super polished, focused experience from beginning to end. But of course, a great heist is nothing without a great team. And that brings us to the heart of the movie, the characters, the Four Horsemen themselves. And believe me, this was another area that desperately needed a tune-up. If you think back to the second movie, the Horsemen often just felt like, well, like plot devices. They were there to push that complicated story forward, and their own personalities and amazing skills got pushed to the side. But in the third movie, they feel like a real team again. Their motivations are way clearer, the relationships actually get some room to breathe, and you see how each of their unique talents is absolutely crucial for the heists to work. They're not just four magicians anymore, they're a team. And what does all this lead to? Much, much tighter pacing. The second film had this weird rhythm where it would drag in some spots and then feel super rushed in others. Here, there is zero wasted time. Every single scene has a clear purpose. It's either building tension, developing a character, or setting up a future payoff. It just makes the whole thing so much more engaging and honestly, way more rewatchable. So, okay, they fixed the story, they fixed the magic, and they fixed the characters. Let's get to the final verdict. What's the big takeaway here, and where does this leave the whole franchise? Which leads to the big question, right? With all these massive improvements, is Now You See Me 3 a masterpiece? And look, the honest answer is no. It's not a perfect movie. But you know what it is? It's a fantastic and frankly necessary course correction. It's a hugely successful redemption that goes right back to the fundamentals, and it reminds all of us why we fell in love with this franchise in the first place. At the end of the day, the third film brought back that core promise we talked about. It delivered on smart storytelling, illusions that felt real, characters you actually cared about, and those super satisfying twists that just make you smile. To put it simply, it brought the entire franchise back from the brink. And really, that's the final, and maybe the best trick of all. Now You See Me 3 wasn't just about the Horsemen pulling off a heist in the movie. It was about the movie itself pulling off the rescue of an entire franchise. By getting back to what made it so special, it leaves us with this one final thought. For the first time in a long, long time, the future of Now You See Me finally looks magical again.